My name is Sunila Abeysekera and I'm from Sri Lanka, and I have worked with a human rights documentation center for the last 20 years. Because I've always lived and worked in Sri Lanka, I think much of my life and activism has been also in the context of conflict in the north and east, and in the context of denial of minority rights in Sri Lanka, right? So there's a kind of a curious mixture if you look at how I've worked over the years and how I continue to work now. There's a piece of it which is about equality and non-discrimination in general, and then there's a piece which is about women's rights in particular, and more there's also a piece of it which is about the rights of particular communities of people, including women, but not also excluding, for example, people living with HIV/AIDS or gay men, whatever, right? I think the challenges of working in a country which has constantly been in conflict for about 20 to 25 years is that the main frame of human rights is seriously damaged. So fundamental freedoms like the freedom of expression, freedom of opinion, freedom of movement, freedom of organization and association are affected. The structures that are supposed to give justice don't work. So the police is hugely corrupt, and the military has got very used to using violence. The judiciary is under a lot of stress. So the systems and structures that uphold a democratic system have broken down. So talking about human rights within such a context means that everything is a challenge. If someone is arrested to try and get an indictment is a challenge. If you are trying to organize a demo, it's a challenge. If you try to protest, it's a challenge. And I think that's one of the reasons why more and more we've tended also to focus on international advocacy, because when we are silenced very brutally and often with life-threatening consequences within our own circumstances and in our own country, then I think reaching out to the international community, to human rights groups, but also to institutions like the UN Human Rights Council, to the special procedures of the Council, to the UN Security Council, those are the places where we try to get some traction, try to get some kinds of ways of influencing the government of Sri Lanka and the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, who are the main players in the conflict, to somehow move to a process of peace, or at least a process of talking about peace, right? Because I think it's really probably the same experience. I talk to women human rights defenders like from Colombia or from Palestine, and I think they have lived with these kinds of situations also, where some things that, for example, people in the US would take for granted, nothing is for granted in our country. Well, the idea of 1 billion rising is actually a very exciting one, and I think it's about time we had something exciting in the movement to end violence against women, because it's something we have been working on for a very long time, and it just seems to get worse and worse, not only in Sri Lanka but around the world. And I think in Sri Lanka we have very particular
need to be able to talk about violence against women, partly because we are in a post-war phase and there are many issues left over from the war period that we need to talk about. We have a Domestic Violence Act that is actually questionable about in terms of its implementation and whether it's actually providing the protection that we need for women who are victims of domestic violence. We have a sexual harassment law that's also not very well implemented, and we have an increase in the most horrendous kinds of violence against women. So I really think that the 1 billion rising represents the need of women's movements working against violence all over the world to do something a little extraordinary, to draw public attention to the issue, to draw in people who are outside the normal, groups of women and groups of human rights defenders that work on violence against women. We need ordinary citizens. We need students, we need housewives, we need professional people, we need high-profile people like religious leaders and actors and singers and musicians to all speak out in one voice against violence against women, and 1 billion Rising provides us with that opportunity. We do very many activities and actions to draw attention to violence against women, but it's never enough to shake up society. It's never enough to shake up global society and our own societies. But I think the 1 billion Rising has an opportunity to also become a media event, because we are hoping that it will draw in a lot of popular high-profile figures, but it also then will present governments and communities with a challenge that somehow all the small activities that we do at the local and community level never manage to communicate. So it's just that it's that big that it must have an impact. History of working with women in trade unions is a song which is from a strike by women workers in factories in 1917 in the United States of America. And this is a time when they were on strike for a 10-hour working day. And so many years ago, before the 8 hours working day was established, they were trying to establish a 10-hour working day, and it was a very successful strike in this town called Lawrence, Massachusetts. As we come marching, marching through the beauty of the day, a million darkened kitchens, 1,000 mills of grain are touched by all the radiance that a sudden sun discloses, and the people hear us singing, bread and roses, bread and roses. As we come marching, marching, unnumbered women dead go crying through our singing, the ancient call for bread, small doubt and love and beauty, their drudging spirits new. Yes, indeed, it's bread we fight for, but we fight for roses too. As we come marching, marching, we bring the greater days, for the rising of the women means the rising of the race. No more the drudge and idler tend their toil while one reposes, but a sharing of life's glories, bread and roses, bread and roses.
Thank you.